Alright, we're on fantasy football.
Okay, my name is Amy Tang.
We forgot to bring our whistles.
Very nice.
Hi, we're the fantasy football team. My name is Amy and I'm the team lead.
My name's Adam.
I'm Brock.
So our project is about fantasy football. Essentially, if you're not familiar with fantasy football, each player over the course of the season obviously will get a certain amount of stats, whether that be passing yards, rushing yards, touchdowns, interceptions. And essentially what fantasy football is taking all of those stats, giving points associated to those stats, and then at the end of the season seeing which players have the most fantasy points. And our project is about predicting which players get the highest fantasy points and which players we predict will get the lowest fantasy points.
So we chose football because fantasy originated with that sport, and it also has a wide range of data sets that were very useful to us. And the popularity for fantasy football is has the most popularity compared to other sports.
So, how we're predicting a player's fantasy points for a particular season is that we look at their stats for the previous season, and then we compare it to their stats from like a current season. So like for example, if we have 2013, we want to see what their 2013 stats were, and then we compare it to the 2014 stats, and then what the fantasy points for the 2014 stats are. And then we're just gonna have multiple entries of players in the data frame who have played 2 consecutive years so that we can learn from like their previous year and then like what are their outcomes for the next year, so that the model like learns from like throwing yards,
Rushing yards.
yes,
Tackles, interceptions.
yes, all those stats. And then it learns what it predicts, like the fantasy points for the next season. So like let's say we get to 2019, we don't have the stats for 2020, or we don't have the stats for 2019 either, but let's say we get to 2018, we don't have the stats for 2019, but now we have our model and we can input the stats for 2018 and then predict what the 2019 ones are. And when you place bets for your NFL players, then you can have the winning team.
So it was a very straightforward regression-based model. It just means there's a bunch of inputs and then creating sort of like a line of best fit, but in this case, since it's more than 1 or 2 dimensions, it's not really a line. Besides the point, some of the libraries we used were pandas, obviously, to manipulate data frames, NumPy. Scikit-learn was the library we used to actually create the regression model. It's just very basic. Common library used for that purpose. And then, let's see, what else did we use?
We use some plot.
Oh yeah, Matplotlib, can't forget about that.
Yes.
That gives us a lot of just output or feedback on whether or not our model's actually working, what's going on with it while we were troubleshooting. This was our first
we like learned it on the job.
This is all on the fly. It was a lot of Googling, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of swearing at computers.
Yeah,
But I mean,
lots of errors.
we sort of have something now.
Yeah.
Well, we're 3 people right now.
Searching the right Google stuff.
Oh yeah, searching the right Google stuff. Our team actually went through a little bit of a downsize throughout the semester, which made us it had to force us to refine our scope a little bit. Originally we wanted to have something more out there in terms of what our output would be, depending on what type of draft you want to do. There's a lot of like different settings that you can use depending on which company you're using as your drafting service for fantasy. So we wanted to take that into account, but with the downsize of our team, we couldn't really tackle that.
Okay, so you know how normal teams write a paper?
Right.
Yeah, well, we're not doing that. We're gonna make something really cool. Go to www.qmindfantasyfootball.ml.